the most progress has been made in history under conservative philosophy.
Never give in. Never, never, never. In nothing, great or small, large or petty, never give in except to convictions of honor and good sense.
Conservatism is what it is. You either feel it, know it, understand it, and can articulate it, or you can't, because you're not one.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
We have a very special guest on this Memorial Day 2013 edition of the Conservative Beacon podcast. He needs no introduction to this audience, particularly those of you listening back up in Atlanta. But he is Kim Peterson, more formerly known as the Kimmer. And Kimmer, it's been a couple of years since we did the podcast. Man, it's great to have you back on here.
Well, I miss you, Josh. How's it going? How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. As you always say, any day above ground's a good one. So,
yes, that's for sure. On the right side of the grass, so it's another surprise. Things are good. You know, retirement's clicking along, and I keep getting sort of a whiff of a possibility of going back to work in Atlanta in talk radio, but it never seems to. They don't seem to pull the trigger. So it's like a tease about it. Geez, maybe I'll be going back to work, and maybe I won't. But
what do we need to do?
Anyway.
What do we, as the listeners, need to do to make that happen?
It's not. That's got nothing to do with it. It's all business. I mean, it's a tough business, and everything changed. I mean, talk radio in the early '90s was just huge. I mean, and through the '90s, and still then. But you know what? After 9/11, in the Atlanta market, everything changed, and everything really started to just go downhill. And the market has changed so much now, and things are happening, and it's just, you know, it's business decisions. When the economy's bad, nobody can afford to buy advertising, and if they can't afford to buy advertising, you can't afford to pay talent to put on the radio show. So, you know, it's a vicious circle, but cycle. But that's what happens. Anyway, no big deal. We'll see.
Well, I know we're all trying to do everything we can to make that happen, because, I mean, to this day, Kimmer, I still get emails and posts on the Conservative Beacon asking, what can we do? What do we need to do? Come on. This is a no-brainer.
Well, there's still a possibility. But every time I talk to the guy, he's yeah, absolutely, man. I got to pull the trigger. At any time, I'm really ripping to go, and then nothing. You know, for 2 weeks, and so you know.
Well, let me ask you this. I don't know how much you can divulge, but if you are able to get the show back together, are we talking about some of the same pieces? Are we talking about bringing Wayne No Offense back, or Snake Davis and Jim Gossett, or how? What are you thinking?
Honestly, I'd love to put the whole team back together again, just as it was. I don't think Wayne No Offense has any possible interest in going back in radio. He's a big shot at Delta now.
Really?
He worked at Delta. Oh yeah, he worked at Delta for years, and actually started in one of those broadcast schools, and that's how he got an intern job at WGST when I was there. And when Mike Rose left, he wanted to do other things. You know, he was my producer. We needed a producer, and we just took a chance on this kid who had never really been in broadcasting, but went to school for it. An Air Force veteran and an Iraqi war veteran, and who was a Delta jet engine pilot, a mechanic. And so he said, sure, what the hell? And his name was Wayne. I said, Wayne, no offense. and so that's how I stuck him with that moniker. But I don't think he's a big shot now. He's like an official management big shot guy who smooths over problems and gets things done. And, I mean, he's a real
So he's the opposite of the
hot
Kimmer.
shot at Delta. He's exactly the opposite of Kimmer. I'm a lazy slob right now, and Wayne No Offense is on the rocket ship of greatness with a great company.
Oh, we tease, we joke.
I would love to work with Snake again. In fact, one of my proposals to get back on another station that, as it turned out, fell through was to have Snake, or Pete, I should call him. I shouldn't call him Snake anymore. It was a long time ago, and that was a joke. You don't even know the story behind that?
No, I knew the one about Wayne, but I don't know the one about Pete Davis.
Is this worth telling, or is this stupid?
No, tell it.
Okay, well, for those who don't know, Pete Davis was the sports guy with me at WGST, and he was doing the morning show with who I think is the best morning man ever, Tom Hughes. And Tom Hughes in the morning, and Pete Davis was doing sports. And when I took over the afternoons, I went to Sluggo, and I said, I want to have Pete Davis do sports for me in the afternoon. And I said, just have him do one sports cast at 5 o'clock for 5 minutes or as long as he wants. He can have as much time as he wants, around 5:15, whatever it was, somewhere in that 5 o'clock, first 20 minutes to 5 o'clock. And I said, I want to do it every day, and I want to have him live in the studio and we'll just, have fun and just do a sports thing. And Sluggo said, well, okay, let me talk to Pete. And because I said it would mean he'd have to work a split shift because he'd still do the morning show. So, this, working twice a day like traffic guys do, that's no picnic. That can mess up your life. Anyway, so it wasn't really fair to Pete, but I told him, I said, I want you to be on my show in the afternoon. I said, I really like your stuff, the way you do it, and I want you as part of my show. Once a day for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever you want to do. And anyway, he said, to Sluggo, he said, okay, I'll do it if you don't make me go to the Falcons football camp way the hell out in Swanee to go cover those guys every day. And he said, fine. So that's how Pete Davis started on my show. Then, in terms of the name Snake, Mike Rose, this was really mean. Mike Rose, and let me see if I get it straight, and his girlfriend, who he later married, were going to have dinner at a fancy restaurant, the name of which is like Bones or Chops or one of those fancy steakhouses. I forgot Prime. I forgot which one it was. Some fancy place. And so, now let's see. How did it go? Oh my God! He was supposed to. Oh, he made reservations, and Pete went to the maitre d' and said, "Hey, when Mike Rose comes up to say I'm ready for my table, tell him we don't have your reservation. We can't take you. We can't seat you." And which they did. And he said it'll be a little joke, and so the maitre d' or had somebody said, so they did it. And Mike was completely embarrassed, and I guess they didn't explain it to him that it was a joke. So he laughed. And never got the meal or something. And he was saying, no, it was a joke. I mean, it was something horrible story like that. And I said, that's the meanest thing I've ever heard. And so that's why I started calling him Snake, because they call him Snake Davis. That's what the story was, because he screwed up Mike Rose and his wife's, her fiance's. And I guess that's when he was going to propose to her. I mean, maybe it was something like that. It was some huge thing. This is 15 years ago or whatever. Anyway, so that's why I started calling him Snake. And that's probably the most boring story you've ever heard. People why does he want to go back on the radio?
I'm sure Pete Davis had to feel terrible after that. I mean, it was hilarious.
I think he did, but it was all in good fun. So, Pete's a weird guy. I'll tell you, I don't mind telling this story. He was, I guess my final wife and I were out of town, and he was watching our dogs for us or something. He had to do something in the house, and we were going to call him when we came back, and he said, well, call the house, and I'll, if it's 10 or 11 o'clock, that's fine. Call the house 10, 11 o'clock, that's fine. And I said, geez, Pete, that's kind of late. He said, no, it's okay. So I called the house, and his mother answered, and I said, hi, this is Kim Peterson. May I please speak to Pete? And she said, oh, he's not here yet. Call back in an hour or so. I said, well, that'll be, midnight. And she said, oh, yeah, that will be on. No problem. And this went on like till 3 o'clock in the morning. And they're all, yeah, how you doing? Hello. Oh, yeah, he's just coming in. Yeah, hold on a minute. Like they just stay up all night, I guess. I don't know. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard. I used to just razz him unmercifully about it. What a great family. I mean, it just sounded like they were just the happiest people ever. And 3 o'clock in the morning, we're up. No problem. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so I would love to work with Pete again if he'd have me, and I'd love to put that show together again. And as far as the Newsmaker line, I always be thrilled to work with the Newsmaker line, the funniest comedy guy that I've ever known, without question.
No, absolutely. I mean, you had the wonderful Leslie Dove, or the glorious Leslie Dove. Let's get it right here.
And that, how that happened? There was another guy who actually did that first. Did you know that?
No. That was before my time.
You want to hear that story?
Program. Yeah, sure.
Is that another boring story? That may be a really boring story.
Nothing you say is boring. You know that by now.
Okay, well, back many years ago on another broadcaster's show, a guy used to call in, and he did men's on ball. And it was a takeoff on men's on sports, or men's on sports, which you take off of men's on ball, which was one of the Damon Wayans brothers comedy bits on their TV show back in the late 80s.
Oh, in Living Color.
Okay. Yeah. And it was like, hated it, those guy who played the gay,
yes.
Kind of commentators.
Yep.
Well, this guy, this private citizen would call in to this guy's show, and he would do a commentary on sports, and he would go, I just got 3 words to say, Dominique, stuff like that. And I always thought he was hysterical, and he was just a guy. He wasn't a broadcaster. He was just a guy. So I found out who he was, and this is before I was doing working at WGST. When I got to WGST, I went to Sluggo again, and I said, look, there was a guy who used to do a bit, and I would love to get him on the air to do the glorious Leslie, or to do a bit with me, like I used to hear on this other station. So I was like, sure. So we got him on the thing, and we didn't know what to call him, and so what was her name? Vivian. It was a producer named Vivian who had the who had the Starship Enterprise tattooed on her left butt cheek, and would show you if you asked her. Anyway, she was among the people who helped name him Leslie Dove. And so I said, okay, every 5 o'clock at 5:05 on Fridays, we're going to have the glorious Leslie Dove. And we played the theme song from It's Raining Men. It's the glorious Leslie Dove with men's on ball. Hated it, anyway. So, and he was so funny, he was hysterical. But then all of a sudden, he started demanding, and we used to give him, like theater tickets and $50 and car wash things and gift stuff. It was just kind of, he called in for 5 minutes once a week, and he wasn't on the payroll. We just kind of gave him stuff, tickets, ball game tickets, stuff like that. Well, he started wanting to get paid, and I think we paid him for a while. Then he wanted more, and then he stopped calling in, and I could never trust him to call in. And finally, I said to him, "Look, if you don't want to do it, don't do it." I said, "If you want to do it, we love it, but I said you can't, I can't be undependable. My audience is either you're here or you're not. If you're not, then say so." And he said, "Well, yeah, okay." And he didn't call in the next week, and I said, "You're fired." So I fired him. So then I went to Jim Gossett, and I said, "Okay, you've heard this guy. You are now the new glorious Leslie Dove," and he did it actually even better than the other guy did. So, but Jim Gossett was the second Leslie Dove because they had to fire the first guy because he stopped calling in.
I did not know that.
He had a problem.
I did not know that there was an original Leslie Dove other than Jim Gossett.
Yeah, and I guess I had him on my show for probably a year before he finally started messing up and didn't show, so I fired him, and then Gossett started. And I don't think anybody ever knew the difference.
All right, I'm going off on a rabbit trail here, but you brought up the Starship Enterprise, and that led me to start thinking about Jefferson Starship. And we actually had I'm down here in Orlando now, and my family and we were over at Epcot on Friday night and we saw an offshoot of Starship, and they played We Built This City on Rock and Roll. Now, do you remember? Okay, all right. Judging by that laugh, you know where I'm going with this. Please tell this story because my wife thinks I'm an idiot for this. That I got such a big chuckle out of this. My dad couldn't remember it, which I was floored by it. You got to tell this story because I started cracking up when I heard it.
I have it on one of the songs. When Wayne, no offense, and I shouldn't even say this too, but during our show. Occasionally, Wayne, no offense, if we would find a bumper song, and I'd say, "Oh, I love that song. Let's put that on the CD." So while I was doing the talk to somebody, he would burn the CD of all the songs that I would pick, and he would play his bumpers that I wanted, So, and one of them was, "We Built This City on Rock and Roll." I said, "I love that song." Anyway, so I had that on the CD that I play in my car. And every time I do it, I say, "Atlantic Station." Yes. Okay, here's what happened. The mayor, Shirley Franklin, had been talking about Atlantic Station as part of Atlanta as the salvation for downtown, as the salvation for Atlanta Metro, that will bring people flocking to this incredible new experience and lifestyle and culture and fun and excitement and entertainment and shopping and stores and restaurants and music, wow, this is going to be great, and all her big money, big deep pocket business cronies were all kind of. There was a whole bunch of stories that are a little bit nebulous in my memory I'm having a rather large adult beverage as we speak.
I wish I had one. I'm jealous.
So anyway, there were some shenanigans going on, and I don't know whether it was some, unsealed bids or jury rigging, or there was something going on. There was a couple of fishy things about the project. It was a huge project. And finally, it just kept culminating in there's all this huge media publicity. And finally, the damn thing opened. It was the day of the opening of Atlantic Station. And so I started talking about it on the air. And Wayne, no offense, out of the blue, I think just on his own. I don't remember asking him to do it. I think he did it on his own and started playing Head On by Starship. We built this city, and I just started making up verses. Atlantic Station, Atlanta, GA, Atlantic Station, Atlanta, GA. You can go to restaurants, da-da-da-da, and you'll have to pick out your own food, da-da-da-da-da, and try to find your car again, da-da-da-da-da, if someone hasn't stolen it from you, da-da-da-da. And I was just making fun of the whole thing. You can buy a condo if you can afford $7 million for 100 square feet. I was just going on and on for like 4 or 5 or 6 minutes of this song, and it was just making up these sort of stupid choruses to Atlantic Station, Atlanta, GA, instead of we built the city on rock and roll. Anyway, and every time I hear that song, I just start laughing like hell, and I started singing Atlantic Station, Atlanta, GA. To this day, I haven't just in the car. It came on my.
That's exactly what happened to me on Friday night. I started singing. It's like Atlantic Station, and everybody's looking at me like I got 6,000 heads, and like, what in the world are you talking about?
Funny.
Here's the sad thing,
funny to anybody. Anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about has.
They're like they've turned it off. They just turned the podcast off.
But I guarantee you, if Wayne was listening, he's laughing hysterically right now because that was funny. We really had a great time with that.
Can you believe this though? With all the stuff that's on YouTube, and if you go, you may have done this, or maybe you haven't. But if you go on there, you can find all kinds of Newsmaker Line stuff. As soon as I got in on Friday night, I came home, got on YouTube, and tried to find a clip of all the Kimmer raving fans out there. How can there not be some audio of this Atlantic Station thing? I wanted to hear it. I was so disappointed.
I wondered why that never made the CD. You'd have thought that would have made one of the year-end CD things.
Yes, you would have, and I actually
because that may have been the last year we were there, or maybe. That's something I wonder why that wasn't on this. Maybe we didn't think it was funny enough, but at the time I thought it was pretty fun.
yeah, it was certainly hysterical, and it certainly stuck with me, that's for sure. All right, look, it's been a couple of years since we had our little podcast, and you could kind of let loose and talk about things, and I wanted to give you an opportunity. And by the way, you're welcome if the itch ever well, that's a poor way to phrase this. If you ever get the urge. Well, I seriously, whatever. If you ever want to come talk about issues, all right, you're more than welcome to use this as a forum. So whenever it all bottles up inside, feel free to come on the podcast.
I still react to the same things. The Benghazi business, and then the gall of Hillary Rodham Clinton to stand before Congress and say, "What difference does it make how it happens?" Exactly the point of that's exactly what difference it makes. What difference it makes is how it happened.
Well,
how did this happen? That's what we're trying to find out. And she said, well, what difference does it make? I couldn't believe it. And they just let her get away with it.
I want to get to the Benghazi thing here in a second, but I don't know if you had a chance to see this today. But I have a feeling this is going to boil your blood. But that Major Nadal Hassan, the Fort Hood terrorist, there was a report that came out today that because the Obama administration didn't classify it as a terrorist attack and instead classified it as a workplace violence incident, that he's been eligible to continue to receive his salary. He's now received $278,000 the last couple of years. All of this now that's bad enough, but all of this has happened while the victims' families and those who survived are struggling to pay their medical bills because they were not eligible for the combat-related funds that would have been dispersed had it been termed a terrorist attack. That's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, everything about it is wrong. Everything about it is wrong. And clearly, people are going to say, well, it's not President Obama's fault because, somebody has to make decisions under him. Well, someone has to take responsibility for not realizing the impact of their decisions. And the problem with having a president who never held a job before and was only elected to an office he held for, a year and a half, never had really no experience in life or the job market or in business or in politics really for more than a couple of years. And so it's not surprising, but it's horrible. I mean, it's appalling. It's disgraceful, and it's just un-American. That if they don't understand the ramifications of their decisions, someone had to know that. Someone, but they don't want to call it a terrorist act because it sounds bad. That's like Clinton didn't want to send helicopters into Bosnia because he was afraid he might hurt somebody's feelings.
That's it.
Ungodly.
We're now more concerned about winning the hearts and minds of the enemy than we are about protecting our own military and about winning the war on terror. Of course, this administration refuses to acknowledge that there's a war on terror. We can't even call it that anymore.
Well, it's clear that the emphasis certainly changed, and I hope, I keep thinking about the next big horrible thing that's going to happen to us, and I look at the terrible footage of what happened to the tornadoes in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Like, holy smokes! I mean, now it's just like, that reminds me honestly of a B-52 raid in Vietnam, where it just obliterates everything, and everything was gone. And I kept thinking, boy, I'm waiting for the next big wave of terrorist attack or something, but it's going to be, the water supply or the electrical grid or the banking system or, some horrible thing. And I just wonder whether we're really up to the task and why all these people are still alive. It's not over by a long shot, and I wonder whether. I don't know. I don't have the kind of feeling of the same reason people aren't flying their flags anymore. I don't see American flags flying anymore.
No, that's a good point.
Rarely. So we get what we deserve if we aren't vigilant. Freedom is not free. It's expensive.
Well, it just seems like we're not taught and we're not encouraged to believe that America is a force for good, that there were certain things that we were founded on, certain principles and values that made this country great for 200 plus years. And I mean, I feel like we have taken a step back.
Yeah, but
that's our own doing.
Yeah, then you're a racist.
Yes.
You're a slave owner or something.
Yeah, if you believe in the Constitution, you're a racist.
Yeah, and if you wish for the days of when I grew up, I'm a baby boomer, and so my early childhood was the 1950s when you left your doors unlocked and keys in the car. We never took our car keys when we drove a car anywhere, ever. To the store, to the market, to the school. We never had a lock anywhere. No one ever locked a door in our neighborhood, ever. Not once, ever. I mean, and you think, but you were all a bunch of racists and black people last in the back. Well, it was the bad part to everything. But the fact of the matter is, we really have lost an awful lot of innocence. And this cynical. Look at the younger generation and what they're. Everybody has an iPhone, and everybody therefore is their own individual radio and TV station,
yep.
Their own newspaper, their own internet. I mean, it's unbelievable. And it's still, everybody driving is on the phone. Everybody walking in the mall is on the phone. They're all texting. They're all email. It's unbelievable. The minutiae that are grinding the very substance of what our culture used to be.
You have 3-year-olds with
when's
iPads.
the last time you wrote a letter? What's that?
I said you have 3-year-olds with iPads. We were at Disney, like I said last weekend, and I'm looking at 4-year-olds. Yeah, probably better than me.
I saw an ad when maybe it was a Super Bowl, and it was my name's Crystal, I'm 2.5, and she put together some kind of cut and paste computerized drawing. Jesus, I can't even do that. I'm free.
That's a great way to make you feel bad about yourself.
Anyway, it's and I'm an old goat. I'm in the past now. And it's not. So nobody listens to. You become invisible when you get to be past your prime, even though you don't feel it. I don't feel any different now. I do not feel any differently now in my head as I sit here right now talking to you than I did when I was 22 or 37 or 14. And which is the horrible thing, because when I go look in the mirror, I'm going to say, who is that guy? But the fact of the matter is, when you become sort of invisible, and you don't really have control of this. It looks like a snowball, and you're saying, wait a minute, let's look back a minute, let's remember a couple of things, and it's like nobody's listening, and nobody's there.
Well, that's the thing. I turned. I had a lot happen to me the last year. I turned 30 last year in April, and then the month before that, I got married, and then so this year I turned 31. And on my birthday, of course, my parents wish me a happy birthday, and my dad said, "Oh, you now realize you're only 9 years away from 40." And I'm like, "Oh, God, thanks a lot, Dad. I really appreciate that." And it's like, man, you think about it, and it's like time. It's true what everybody says. The older you get, the faster time goes by.
Well, you know what? And I hate to think about Josh. I'll put it this way: I'm 67, although I read at the 7-year-old level. I got that. I'm 67, and I have my horse, and I have a Harley chopper, and my Harley cop motor, and my Copsicle, my Harley cop bike, and my golf club stuff. But I figure, I'm not there. For how long am I going to be able to ride my chopper? With that big screaming Eagle racing motor on it. Listen, till I'm maybe 75, 70. Let's say 77. That's 10 years. That's 10 more summers.
Yeah.
So I have 10 more summers. That's it. Oh. And I'm thinking, geez, you only have 10 more Christmases. You only have 10 more things. You know what I mean?
It's depressing.
You're thinking, holy crap, that's really depressing. I mean, think about it. I think, God, I've got 10 more summers I can, ride my motorcycle without fear of falling off or something. I said, holy crap. I mean, it's just, and I don't feel it. It's like I'm being punished. I didn't do anything wrong. Oh, it's when you put it that way, if you're 50 years old, you've only got, maybe 30 Christmases left.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, if you're maybe 20, maybe 40, but maybe 20 Christmases and birthdays and family gatherings,
this is depressing.
When you count them, but maybe it gives you a bit more appreciation of, what we're going through every single day. It's a freaking gift, boy. I mean, I am blessed every single day, and I know it.
So everything, I know you probably are itching to get back on the air, although I know you're content. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. But is everything else good? I mean, you're good health-wise, everything.
Yeah, I'm healthy. I was taking a bunch of martial arts classes of this Indonesian Silat
Karate Kimmer.
In fact, my kids put a picture of me on it doing one of our a drill where you take away a knife and you break the guy's wrist and turn it into himself. And I think there's a picture of me on my Facebook page that Jennifer put up there or something. Anyway, I'm a summer golfer. I don't play in the winter because the days are too short. And I see my horse every morning and every afternoon. And there's no time to get to the golf course in between when the days are short as they are. So I play golf in the summertime. And so I'm active. I mean, and I work out and I do, I do a lot of things. But retirement is it's not too shabby, but I miss the mental gymnastics. That's what I did for a living for over 40 years, and it's hard. All of a sudden, you're not doing it anymore, and it's different. It's I don't like it sometimes.
Well, I know it's always a treat when you're willing to take some time and come back and visit with us. I know the people back in Atlanta really get a kick out of it. They're chomping at the bit to get something done to get you back out there.
That's very kind. And all 14 of them, I'm sure.
Come on, Cameron. Let's be fair. It's 17.
Listen, it could be dozens. Could be dozens and dozens. Anyway, not to. I'm flattered anyone's even thinking about it. And honestly, it was just the most fun I've ever had. It was like 15 years or something up there in Atlanta doing that show, and it was just as much fun as a guy can have, standing up. Really, it was.
Well, you made the
enjoyable.
You made the miserable traffic of Atlanta not only tolerable, but actually something you look forward to. You kind of hoped you'd be in the car a little bit longer so you could listen to 2 hours of the Kimmer instead of just an hour. So.
Well, you're very kind, Josh. I appreciate it. And listen, my best wishes on Memorial Day, and for parents, make sure your kids understand a little bit of something why it's not just a nice day to go shopping and everything's 40% off. That there actually some meaning to it, and that's all I do with my kids. I didn't harp on anything. I was kind of preach to them, but I made sure every year, like same with the 4th of July, to really understand what it means, And that's the best you can do as a parent. That's why we're here. So anyway, with that in mind too, also have a great weekend. And Josh, it's always a pleasure talking to you, my man. Congratulations on the new bride, and best of luck on the podcast again. Good talking to you, man.
I appreciate it. Good talking to you and Kimmer on this Memorial Day. I want to thank you for your service to this country. It is very much appreciated.
It was an honor. I really. Hey, Josh, guess what?
What's that?
Gotta go. You're killing me, man.
We'll talk to you later,
man.
Kimmer.
Yeah, for good.
You
Thanks,
too.
Josh. I'll see you. Take care.
Well, it's always a thrill to have the Kimmer on the Conservative Beacon podcast, and it's certainly great to hear that he's doing well and that there's still a chance, Atlanta, that the Kimmer could be back on the air. So that's something for us to hold out some hope for. But it's always a thrill to have him on because his show back in the late 90s and early in the 2000s really influenced me and sort of reinforced the direction I went in politically. My father and I used to listen to him pretty religiously. So, that's the thing, folks. It's like talk radio used to be, and look, there still is some of this, but it used to be a community. There was a bond there. Like, even though you didn't know the host personally or the cast around the host personally, it was consistent. You knew you were going to turn it on every afternoon at 3 o'clock or at noon, whatever time the show was that you listened to, and you knew it was going to be there. It was there. Other things in your life could be changing and moving and going in a different direction, but that show would be there. And it was the same thing every day. And there's something to be said for that consistency. I think that we all long for that to some degree, that stability. It provides a sense of comfort. And that was certainly the case with me. It was nice to be able to flip on the radio at 3 o'clock Eastern and have 4 hours of the Kimmer. Because you would be listening. At one point, folks, my radio, when I was going to college, and you're studying and doing everything and trying to get the Conservative Beacon off the ground, at one point my radio did not leave the AM dial from 6 a.m. until midnight. It was the local morning guy that you just heard the Kimmer mention, Tom Hughes. Then it was Glenn Beck, 9 to noon. Then it was Rush, noon to 3. And then it was Kimmer, 3 to 7. And then at that point, I'd have to flip over and go listen to Michael Savage on a different station who aired delayed over in the Atlanta market at that time. But that's the impact that talk radio had on me. And undoubtedly, that's one of the reasons why you hear me today here. So the Kimmer certainly played a large role in that, and it's always a thrill. It's always an honor to be able to have him on the podcast and be a part of the Conservative Beacon. And as we close out this Memorial Day edition of the Conservative Beacon podcast, I want to close it out with the Kimmer reading the poem by Lawrence Vancourt called A Simple Soldier. And this was a tradition on the Kim Peterson show. Every Memorial Day, that Friday before the holiday, he would read this poem. And to me, there's no better example of what we're celebrating and what we're honoring this weekend than the words in this poem. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you to all of those who have sacrificed to provide the very freedom that allows me to get up here and do this podcast and allows us to go do everything that we do. So to all of you out there, have a safe, wonderful, and happy Memorial Day, and we'll see you back here next Wednesday. But until then, enjoy the Kimmer reading A Simple Soldier.
Memorial Day is a time to remember. Memorial Day is a time to salute. there is a poem called Just a Simple Soldier. He was getting old and paunchy, and his hair was falling fast. And he sat around the Legion telling stories of the past, of a war that he had fought in and the deeds that he had done in his exploits with his buddies. They were heroes, every one. And though sometimes to his neighbors his tales became a joke, all his buddies listened, for they knew whereof he spoke. But we'll hear his tales no longer, for old Bob has passed away, and the world's a little poorer, for a soldier died today. No, he won't be mourned by many, just his children and his wife, for he lived an ordinary, very quiet sort of life. He held a job and raised a family, quietly going on his way, and the world won't note his passing, though a soldier died today. When politicians leave this earth, their bodies lie in state, while thousands note their passing and proclaim that they were great. Papers tell of their life stories from the time that they were young, but the passing of a soldier goes unnoticed and unsung. Is the greatest contribution to the welfare of our land some jerk who breaks his promise and cons his fellow man, or the ordinary fellow who in times of war and strife goes off to serve his country and offers up his life? The politician's stipend and the style in which he lives are sometimes disproportionate to the services he gives, while the ordinary soldier who offered up his all is paid off with a medal and perhaps a pension small. It's so easy to forget them, for it was so long ago that our Bobs and Jims and Johnnies went to battle. But we know it was not the politicians with their compromise and ploys who won for us the freedom that our country now enjoys. Should you find yourself in danger with your enemies at hand, would you really want some cop-out with his ever-waffling stand? Or would you want a soldier who was sworn to defend his home, his kin, and country, and would fight until the end? He was just a common soldier, and his ranks are growing thin, but his presence should remind us we may need his like again. For when countries are in conflict, then we find the soldier's part is to clean up all the troubles that the politicians start. If we cannot do him honor while he's here to hear the praise, then at least let's give him homage at the ending of his days. Perhaps just a simple headline in the paper that might say, "Our country is in mourning, for a soldier died today."